All right, gentlemen, stand by. I'm going to roll audio. I'll kick mics in at the intro. Stand by.
Ladies and gentlemen, as part of the Jeremiah Show, welcome to It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack. Now here's the host of the show, a man whose first day in Hollywood involved cocaine and Marlon Brando. It's TV's Tim Stack. Yeah! Show number 10, I believe. Yes. Oh my God, we've created a movement. It's just sweeping the world. Hey everybody, Tim Stack here with another edition of It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack. So the cocaine and Marlon Brando story it wasn't my first day. I think it was my third day. And I've talked about this before. The only person I knew when I came to LA was a small-time coke dealer. And I never liked cocaine. I tried it once. It didn't work with my allergies. It just never happened, but I didn't know anybody. So I would call this guy, and literally my third day, he said, come on, we're going to go to the William Morris office. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to William Morris. This is a big deal for me. I'm trying to be an actor, and my third day in Hollywood. And we go there, and we're meeting an agent who is the cousin of some really big actor who just passed away recently. He might have been in The Godfather. I don't want to sound it. He might have played the older brother in The Godfather, but it was a cousin. And then the writer-director, Robert Downey Sr., was in the office. So he's passed on, and he's also talked about his drug use. So I'm not talking out of school here. So, but Downey had written a script, and it was getting a lot of heat, like Martin Mull, who one of our guests worked with. We'll talk about him later on. And it was getting a lot of heat. And all of a sudden the agent said, I think we should call Brando. Meanwhile, the dealer, my friend, has dumped a large amount of cocaine on the desk in the William Morris office. And these three guys are using drugstore straws, like the long kind you get with a smoothie. And they're doing cocaine and talking about the script. And then suddenly on the speakerphone, they call Brando. And I'm in the back of the room. It's my third day, and I'm listening to this, and I'm witnessing this. It's all the cliches of Hollywood and cocaine. And then they call Brando. And Brando was you hear the voice, which I don't do a good impression of. And he's like, Bobby, I love the script. I'm just so busy. And meanwhile, these guys are continuing. They're more interested in their cocaine than they are in Brando. But that was my third day, and it was just like, wow, what have I gotten myself into? And I got myself into a 40-year career. So anyway, I have some really great friends and partners who are the guests today. So Richard, can we start the drum roll intro, and I'll introduce them. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my first guest, Jim Stein, wrote the first talking movie, The Jazz Singer, with Al Jolson.
Just kidding. No, I did the silent version.
He wrote the subtitles in the silent version. I'm kidding. He wrote on shows like Sanford and Son, Fernwood Tonight, Silver Spoons. He made Rick Schroeder a Republican. Just kidding. And of course, the classics, Nightstand with Dick Dietrick and Son of the Beach starring me. There's Jim Stein, but don't give up that drum roll yet. Morgasen, my other guest, is a writer-director who got his start in Yiddish Theater, writing jokes for Morty Gunty. I'm kidding again. No, Morty Gunty.
Kids love that joke.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Good to lead with.
A bunch of shows, was a long-time segment director for shows both Ellen and the Jimmy Kimmel Show. Also an executive producer on Nightstand with Dick Dietrick, and a co-creator of Son of the Beach with me. Anyway, his name is Dave Morgasen. Give him a hand. Welcome, nice. Jim and Dave. I haven't talked to you since this morning. No, we talked a lot. But anyway, thank you. Thanks for doing this, guys. Welcome. I want to throw it out to you because I want to hear everybody's version of how the three of us, or individually, how we met. So I'll give my version, which might be different. Who knows? So Dave, start with you because I met you first.
Okay, so Yes, we've known each other for years, and we worked in the growing, burgeoning field of industrial comedy.
Which you're going to have to explain what that is.
Okay, the oxymoron of corporate comedy. Basically, when Tim was with the Groundlings, a group of us would get together and we would entertain at corporate functions like sales meetings, conventions, and things like that.
But you had a whole business. That's what you did.
Yes, yeah, that was my business. I'm from New York, and I had the business while I was in New York, and that's how I moved west. I just kept the business going and relocated out here, and then segued into the entertainment business from that. And so Tim and I we did dozens of those type of shows at first, and we're friends a long time before we started working together. And so, and so Tim had invited me, he had the opportunity when he was creating the show Nightstand with Dick Dietrick. He had hired me for the pilot, got me onto the pilot.
Hold on to that for 1 second, because I want to go back to the Groundlings. You were with the Groundlings in New York. That's how you sort of met the Groundlings, which was a weird sort of offshoot, because I think but a lot of people took class there. Like, first of all, late Alan Kirschenbaum, whose dad just passed away, Freddie Roman.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, that would be a fantastic memorial service, Freddie Roman's memorial service. But you took class there, and that's how you met the Groundlings.
Yeah, back in the 80s, they had the Groundlings had an offshoot called Groundlings East.
Right.
Later became something else, but it was Groundlings East, and I took classes from two longtime members of the Groundlings, Randy Bennett and Shirley Prestia.
Right.
They basically ran the Groundlings East in Manhattan.
Into the ground too.
Yes, yeah, ground too. So I took 2 levels of classes at the Groundlings School, Groundlings East School, and then so I happened to mention to them that I did these industrials, the corporate stuff,
right?
And most like music videos, slideshows, things like that. Not really comedy yet, but then they said, well, the Groundlings are really getting into that, and this guy Tom Maxwell, who is like, one of the original, I think one of the original artistic directors of the Groundlings, one of the co-founders, he is interested in really expanding the Groundlings reach in the corporate field, and he's coming into town, so he'd like to meet with you. Okay. So that was the boss coming, from the home office, basically, right. Visiting the, yeah. And so we met, and that's when he told me that, and we met, we had lunch, and then we got into business together. And
just to talk a little bit about industrial comedy, because Dave would hire a bunch of us, and we would go on these trips to the company, mostly the company's conventions. So all the people that worked in this company were drunk the entire time. Like people they were on their vacation. They had won bonus points and they got invited to these conventions. And so inevitably, I would say, Dave, 9 times out of 10, our jobs as Groundlings were to do impersonations of the executives.
Yes, that's what's great about the Groundlings. We kind of positioned it as sort of like SNL meets corporate America, because it was more irreverent than your average corporate function.
Right.
And so, yes, part of the job of the actors were to impersonate executives, which the audience loved, the working guys, people at the companies loved. And, we had songs and sketches and everything. And the weird thing was, like, normally actors would, like, their call time might be 7 p.m. for an evening show at the Groundlings or whatever. Here, it was more like 7 a.m.
Yes.
Which the actors didn't particularly like. But the good news was that by noon, we're pretty much done. We were done, and then, go ahead.
Yeah, no.
We were done.
Yeah.
Done. And then within an hour, down by the pool with drinks in hand.
Yeah, at the company's expense.
At the company's expense,
and
yes.
They picked up everything, these companies. So they picked up your hotel room. I would go to hotel rooms and call long lost friends from college, because back then you got charged for long distance. So I would talk for hours to guys I went to college with, because Casio is paying for it.
Yeah. The company Casio, by the way, that was kind of that was kind of an anomaly. Yeah. Because they were this one company that, like, had no rules. It was chaos, and it was so fun. and that was one of my first jobs. So I was under the mistaken impression that all companies were crazy and drunk and everything.
No,
But
it's some very serious.
Well, yeah. And also most companies had per diem, right? They give you X amount per day. Casio, like Tim just said, there were no per diem, but it's like, yeah, whatever. Like there were actors who went and got massages.
Oh, I played golf at Doral on another company. I do want to say though, I've been asked this, what's the biggest laugh I ever got? And the biggest laugh I ever got was one of your shows for the National Semiconductor. I don't even know if they're still around.
Probably not.
But the punchline, here was the punchline. Punchline was, what do I look like? The B-174? And I had to hold for 4 minutes. I am not exaggerating, because these nerds, and there were 2,000 of them or something. And the B-174 was some horribly failed project that I'm sure 12 people were fired for creating. But it was like the big joke in the company, the B-174 or whatever it was, whatever the fun. But I literally had to hold for 4 minutes. I looked out and there were just nothing but nerds from all over the world are just screaming, laughing so hard at the B-174.
They're laughing so hard their pocket protectors were jumping out of their pockets. Yeah. The funny thing is, like, I used to write a lot of those things, and what I would do is, like, I'd visit the company and I'd sit down with these nerds in a room, people from the audience, and say, what would make you laugh? You know, that type of thing. And they say, oh, the B-174 is like, what a failure that's been. That product launch was just, not good. And so I'd write it into the script. So the funny thing is that the actor, like Tim would say, B-174, and he didn't know it. He'd say it.
No, why is it making me laugh?
It's like, and he didn't know, but he just, you just go with it, right? And it's like, this is getting a laugh. I'm just going to milk it. I'm just going to sit here for 4 minutes and look at my watch and wait for it to die down. And that was the funny part about doing those industrials, is the actors didn't know. Well, I guess I hit upon something,
So, so then when Nightstand with Dick Dietrick came around, we were looking for writers. I had worked with Dave and I thought, he'd be really good for this show. And he was. So we brought him in, which then led us to meeting my other guest, James R. Stein, Jim Stein with a microphone, who looks like he's on the deluxe radio hour in 1940.
This is
bigger than you, Jim, that microphone.
First of all, this is my first podcast. So, it's my first podcast. I'm using an iPad, so I think I'm supposed to look over here, right? Not in the middle.
Fine. That microphone is blocking everything. It's blocking behind you.
I'm using the Kerry Lake filter too.
Oh,
is it working?
Lake filter is awesome. Yeah.
Thanks.
It's really good. Yeah.
A little Vaseline on the lens. No, Jim, I'm using that too. You got to look at the little tiny hole where the camera is. That's where you got to look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's over here.
Okay. So then, which led us to meeting Jim Stein. And what happened was, when we sold Nightstand, the guy, Larry Little, who's very good friends with Jim, who had this company called Big Ticket. And he was he's really the reason Nightstand with Dick Dietrick happened, was Larry Little. And Larry said, look, there are a couple of writers I want on this. They worked on Fernwood Tonight. And I said, oh my God, Fernwood Tonight. Because Fernwood Tonight was to the Mike Douglas show what Nightstand with Dick Dietrick was to Jerry Springer. So I thought, a spoof of a TV show, this guy worked on, to me, like the Bible of that, Fernwood Tonight. And it was great. So Jim and his then partner, Bob Isles, came to work on the show. Anyway, I'm taking words out of your mouth, Jim, but that's in essence.
No, it's please take them all out. I've never done a podcast before. I don't know what I'm doing.
It's just talking. That's all it is.
All right. Just smoothly. Okay.
You've done radio, Jim. That's how you started.
Well, that's where I got my start.
You and Bob Isles.
So I do, and we got about a minute to go. So I'll use that, Jim, because you came in, you had a partner, Bob Isles, who you did for 25 years or something. Maybe
we were together, yes, for that long.
And very successful in the sitcom world and the variety world. They had a major career. But here's what happened, everyone.
And then we fell on hard times and I met you.
Hit the skids and he took a job on Nightstand. But maybe that's true.
It is true.
What happened is that Bob and Jim broke up their writing partnership right in front of our very eyes.
Well, I was left. I did not break this up.
But all I know is I remember getting a call. We were at Larry Strother's house. We were writing the show. And I get a call from Harry Little. And he's kind of like, look, I don't know what to say to this, but Stein and Isles broke up. And I said, really? I said, which one is staying? One of them is staying. And I said, I hope it's Jim Stein. This other guy is just kind of a surly guy who kind of like his laugh.
Now, come on.
No, we can talk. This is where it gets to be much.
You're not going to be Frank Sinatra and bring me together with him?
No.
There's somebody I wanted you to meet.
Yeah, Isles he would laugh, but he would laugh, and it was like a laugh growl. Like his laugh was, that's how, like, that was his version of laughing at a joke in a room. Which also annoyed me. I was glad to see him go. Not only did he not contribute, he had that weird laugh. So I was
stopped.
And Jim was such a great contributor. And obviously we went on, the three of us, to do Son of the Beach, which we're going to talk about on the other side of this break. You were listening to It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack. I'm going to plug two plugs. My boss is here, the Jeremiah Show, Jeremiah Higgins, who makes all this happen. Richard, Dr. D. Dugan is our engineer. I do want to plug the show Sprung. It's out there on Amazon Freevee. If you haven't seen it, it's really, really wonderful, getting great notices. And it's just weird. It's on a channel people have they need a compass to find Freevee, but they're slowly finding us. So anyway, we're going to take a break. It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack. We'll be right back.
Good stuff, guys. I love it.
Need you to double check, Tim, make sure that your audio is off on your tablet.
It says unmute.
Okay, it says unmute, leave it. Okay, because it's not in the recording, but I'm hearing somewhere.
Yeah, I don't hear
an echo.
Feedback. Weird.
I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah.
What about the headphones? Is there a set of headphones that's turned up over there?
No.
Would it be me?
No. I don't think. I can turn off. Testing 1 2.
Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3.
Testing 1 2. I'm hearing it.
It's coming from maybe your monitor.
No, because the monitors are muted. Test 1 2.
I hear it too.
I hear it.
Test 1 2.
Mic's off.
There's nothing here.
Test. You hear it?
Yeah.
Testing. Your
iPad.
Yeah. Testing 1 2 3.
His mic's off.
No, not his mic. Speaker.
Oh.
Yeah. Got to turn this. That's what it. And again, it's not part of the recording, but
I didn't hear it before that. Good ear. Richard.
Yeah.
Hey Jim, by the way, this is radio.
All right.
So how many radio shows have you
Is that
done?
better?
Oh, okay. I get distracted by myself.
Test 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 1.
I did mute it.
letting him mute it.
It's not letting him mute it.
The iPad's
Go into Zoom, go into Zoom audio to speaker. And you should be able to turn it down from there.
You want to come show us, Richard?
All right.
Faster.
Yeah. See if we can do that.
Zoom.
You want to go to, let's see, what do we got here? Does it show audio? Because usually it's down at the bottom, the stuff that, no, wait, here we go. Is the little arrow up here? That's turning the video on and
Share
off.
content.
No. Audio.
He's got his mute right here.
Right. We don't want that, but the little arrow we have on ours?
Yeah, it's different on the iPad.
Oh, wait a minute. Hang on a second. Hang on.
Maybe over here.
I'm looking for, how about settings? Are settings over there?
More.
Okay. Audio?
General, maybe.
No, not general. It needs to go to either audio or audio.
That's his.
Yeah, let's. Now it's low enough. I'm just hearing it. It's not a part of the recording. It's just there.
Yeah, it would be annoying though if it does pick it up.
I didn't hear it, so
I didn't either, but You never know on the final recording. You know,
Yeah.
we'll have a feedback.
Is this part of the show?
No. I'm gonna raise this up for just a moment.
Disconnect audio?
No, don't want to disconnect audio. I'm gonna move this for just a moment so I can see what the heck is going on here.
Sorry, guys. We'll be right back. We just want to make sure
It's not my,
Back
it's
on.
not one of our headphones that's too loud, right?
No. It's at this end, and it's chat
Meeting
apps,
settings?
not meeting settings. One second. Okay.
I could stand to turn mine down a little bit.
Meeting settings. Well, actually, let's try that. None of
should be able
these.
to turn off the iPads. Oh yeah.
I think. Hang on a second here. That's Zoom. Trying to find. Don't leave. I'm gonna do this again. And let's go.
Wait, did that take it away?
No, it's still there. I can. It's even more. It's even louder. Hang on one second.
I think it's good.
Good. There we go.
Meeting, contact, more.
General?
No, it's not gonna be, I don't think it's gonna be under general. Because what we want is audio and video settings. Let's try this. No, that isn't it. Boy, that's strange.
Should we just go with it, just so we
I
don't
think
burn
I-
our time?
Yeah, exactly.
time.
I don't wanna waste time. Okay, let's get
Well,
you
this,
set
well,
up
good,
again.
good ear, Richard. So we can't fix it, but
No, we cannot.
hopefully,
Okay, there you
just
are.
keep the mic as far away from that as you can.
Yeah, well, as long as we're like right here.
Yeah.
Tighten this up.
And I can move back a little bit.
Okay. Why don't you go too far back? All right, let's,
Testing, one,
Bring
two,
him
three,
up just a
testing, one,
touch.
two, three.
he needs to, oh!
No.
Nope.
Already broke it.
Okay.
Jim,
Where'd,
I
where'd,
love the background of Jim's place
Yeah.
there. That's TV money.
where did Dave go?
Dave left.
Dave
There he
left,
is.
okay.
You'll
All
hear a
right, let me just
flush.
double check, how's he look on your screen, Jeremiah?
Looks good to me.
Tim? All right,
Yeah,
Hey
Well-
guys, thanks. We just wanted to,
Yeah.
we want to make sure we're
Exactly.
representing your audio.
exactly,
best we can.
exactly. All right, here we go. Counting down. 3, 2.
Ellen, you're a salty old sea biscuit. Do you know anything about clams?
Notch, I've probably eaten over 100,000 clams in my day. Maybe a hair more.
What do you make of this one? Oh,
Sand. Ooh, that's a bad clam, all right. There's only one thing that can make a clam go bad like that.
lack of ventilation?
No, nuclear waste.
nuclear waste. One of the 800,000 jokes we did on that show, Sound of the Beach. So welcome back. It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack talking to James R. Stein and Dave Morgasen, my co-creators on that show, and also Nightstand with Dick Dietrick. They were not the co-creators, but the main writers of the show, along with yours truly. So, guys, let me ask you this. I want you to talk about any recollections you have about selling Son of the Beach, because that was a crazy process of where it started and how it ended up. So, Jim, start with you. Anything come to mind?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking. What about when you took it to Howard? I think that's probably the start of it, right? I mean,
yeah,
we had the idea.
right. We had met over at Dave's house. We had lunch and we were trying to come up with a show and for me to star in. This is post Nightstand, and we watched. Dave had a copy of Police Squad. And we watched it and we were laughing like, why can't we do that? and then let's come up with something. And I thought about that. I had written it as a treatment, not starring me. That actor Chris McDonald, I thought would be right in it. Son of the Beach. And they were like, no, that's it. It's you. And, so it becomes Get Smart at the Beach. And so we developed it. And then, we took it to Howard. I think we tried to sell it once.
Through Don Buchwald, right? You signed up with Don Buchwald.
Right.
Got to Howard.
I think we did, Tim, bring it someplace like without pre-Howard.
Pre-Howard.
Yeah.
And maybe we did. Yeah.
I can say this. I think the guy who eventually canceled us, we pitched it to originally. It was Kevin Riley, I think, who was at Brillstein, and we pitched it to him, and we never heard back, or we got lukewarm response or something. And then years later, he ended up being at FX, and he was the guy who kind of pulled the plug on us, which is a turn. So Dave,
the thing is though, we did, when he pulled the plug on us, we had done 44 episodes, which today would be 5 seasons of a 8 episode show.
With that number of episodes in today's, no, it's really true. Like, and when I say about Nightstand, we did 96 episodes. People are like, what? That's impossible. No, that's what we did. 96 episodes shows you
2 years in 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
96. Yeah.
And Son of the Beach.
Was we wouldn't be basking in all those profits if we had just done 10 or 8.
Jim wouldn't have that ocean behind him.
I think I was under the impression that we went to FX before Howard and they liked it, but then we came in with Howard or something.
No, and correct me if I'm wrong. What I remember was Howard came out and he had a limo. Yeah. We didn't all get in the limo. So I went with an actress who ended up being on the show, Kim Oya, Howard, and Don. And we hit like 6 places. I should also say that the idea of bringing an actress in and acting out a scene started on Nightstand with bringing in Judy Toll from the Groundlings to actually act out a scene for the buyers. And it's really a great way to sell a show. Now you'd never do that because we don't have live meetings anymore. Now you'd have to go out and shoot it. But anyway, we went out and we went to like 6 places and there was some interest. And then Howard went back to New York and Jim, your friend Jeremiah Bosgang, was at FX.
Yes, Jeremiah. Yeah, I was instrumental in getting Jeremiah Bosgang a job. He was an improv actor and did a lot of things along the way. And my friend was Rick Ludwin, who ran NBC Variety, and he was looking for somebody. And I met this guy at a Thanksgiving or something like that. And I said, well, maybe this guy would be good for, because he'd worked on Letterman.
But hadn't he called Larry Little's Television or something? He was friends of some friends who were there that night, and as I remember it anyway, the point is he got this job with Rick Ludwin, and he's got a whole story to tell. Where did we just hear that? We just heard his whole story told. It was on the podcast.
Yeah. So in any case, to make a long story short, no way, it's too late now. He got this job with Rick Ludwin, and then he went to Fox, and then he went to FX, and it was a last ditch effort. They had gone everywhere with Howard. Of course, everybody wanted a meeting with Howard, and
that's really what
struck out. And so I called him on the outside chance that he might be interested in a show like this. I didn't think we had much of a chance, but turns out they were looking for something that was really male skewing, and FX, as well as all the other Fox, I think, cable networks, were not on in New York because Ted Turner was running Time Warner Cable at the time. And they wouldn't let Fox on because Fox was competing with their news their CNN, and they were going to be on the air in 2 years. So when we got when I think Peter Ligori, who was running FX at the time that Jeremiah was working under, when he heard that we could get Howard Stern involved in a show that he would pump like crazy, which he did, it got FX on the air in New York like 2 years in advance of when they were supposed to go on the air, because people were demanding they see Son of the Beach, Howard Stern's new show. And that's that.
Yeah. So
You can edit it. You can edit it. There's
that whole monologue's already been taken out.
okay.
That's how good Dr. D is. So
I'm better when I can write it all out, like
the writer.
Yeah, okay.
So let's talk about, Dave, anything to add there on the selling of Son of the Beach? Anything come to mind?
No, I just remember you said you guys were in the limo, and I remember I was sitting at home one day in my home office, I was working, and the phone rings, and I'm like, hello. It goes, hey, Dave, it's Howard Stern. I never talked to Howard before. Now, I'm a long-time listener, huge fan of Howard. Like when he was on in New York in the 80s on WANBC, I listened to him in the afternoons. He was really hardcore then, and in my opinion, at his funniest. He was great, and I was always a huge fan. In fact, I was supposed to go in for a job interview to be a producer for Howard's NBC network radio show, the network show. And on the day I was supposed to go in to drive in from New Jersey at the time, I heard Howard was fired from NBC. So that was
what was his network? What was his network show?
It was, I don't know.
Heard of that.
It was just going to be an NBC radio.
Oh, it wasn't on the air.
No, but we had a mutual acquaintance, a radio executive, and that was my background. I started in radio. I worked everywhere from Columbus, Ohio to New York City. I worked at 2 stations in New York. So we traveled kind of in the same radio circles, but had never met. And so this mutual acquaintance this executive said, look, I think Howard would really like you, and we're doing a network show. I want you to go in as producer. So you're going to meet with Howard and with his producer, Gary, Baba Booey. And so a friend said, you know what? This sounds like a publicity stunt, Howard getting fired. I would go in anyway, because they're not going to fire Howard. And so the day I was supposed to go in, I was calling frantically, and finally, Baba Booey picked up. And I said, hey, Gary, it's Dave Morgasen. I'm supposed to come in today to talk to you guys. I understand this firing may be a publicity stunt. Just want to confirm that. He goes, oh, man, I wish it was a publicity stunt. Howard and Robin are both outside in the street. I'm just coming to get the last couple of boxes. We've been fired, man. Do not come.
No. Wow.
And so years and years later, when I talked to Gary when we were doing Son of the Beach, he absolutely remembered that, along with the phony phone call I made to Frank Sinatra, which we'll get into later. And he remembered that, and he also remembered.
We may be running out of time. You should tell it now.
No, we're good. Keep going.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, so when I met with Howard, he remembered that he was supposed to have a network radio show. And he goes, oh, you're the guy. It's like, 15 years later, whenever it was. So I finally got to meet him. And then when I met with Howard, it was great because we talked shop, because we knew all the same radio people. So it was really interesting. And when I met Jimmy Kimmel, he was also had a radio background. So we also, did all this radio.
Funny, Ray Garcia, the guy I'm working for now on Sprung, just met Jimmy Kimmel, and all they talked about was radio. And Kimmel was really psyched just to talk about radio. That's his first love, I think, was radio.
Yeah. When I was working there, I'd be in the edit bay, just cutting a piece that I shot because I directed for him. And it's so what stations did you work for before you went to New York? I'm texting and he's upstairs in his office, and we're texting back and forth. Did you ever work with this guy? I'm going, yeah, I knew him, but I never worked with him. Yeah, he was really into radio. Same with Howard. So it's this fraternity. And that's where I thought I'd be. I went to college for radio. I thought I would be. I used to hang around at NBC at 30 Rock as a high school student. I was on this high school station. I interviewed Don Imus, Wolfman Jack, all these other people for a radio show that I did. And
it's so funny, turning it back to Jim. Jim, you also did that in Chicago.
Well, in Chicago, yeah, I would call. First of all, this
How
was
old were you?
ages ago.
You would call up hotels and ask.
I called hotels.
Yes, tell the story. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
No. I would call up hotels and I'd say, "Is Elizabeth Taylor there?" I mean, I'd put on a radio voice, because I was 12 years old, and I'd say, "Is Elizabeth Taylor there? This is Jim Stein from WNTH Radio."
And that's
And
the radio station.
they put her on the phone. I mean, you could do that in those days. They didn't have the phony names, but whatever, they just put you through. And so I interviewed Louis Armstrong and Jesse Owens and Maury Amsterdam. And,
Didn't you also go to some hotel rooms where people were and also I should mention that Jeff Price, who went on to have a movie writing career, Roger Rabbit and The Grinch, he was kind of your sidekick in this?
we may have done one or two together, but I was basically the guy, and we'd have this giant Voice of Music tape recorder that weighed about 100 pounds literally, and I'd have to take it up. So sometimes I'd have somebody else with me to just get the tape recorder up. Anyway.
And so
we did all those interviews. I interviewed Louis Armstrong in his underwear. They actually did a NPR or PBS, one of those people did a animated version of some of that interview with me as
so funny,
a 13-year-old or 14-year-old.
Right. And what would happen? Like you'd knock on the door, they're expecting some DJ, and they knock on the door and a 13-year-old kid, like
right,
hotel room. What was the reaction?
Well, they were all very nice. I have to say, everybody was really nice to me, except for Maury Amsterdam. He got a little testy because I had my set of prepared questions, and I'd say, "So, how did you get started?" And he'd go into this thing, and he said, "Well, I was in the Army, and I was in USO, and were you ever in the Army?" Would be my next question.
Well, I can see why.
And he said, "You're not listening."
I think we did that joke on Nightstand, the pilot Nightstand, that Doug Cox was somebody in the audience. That's
but,
yeah, we did.
Yeah. But I was too nervous to just wing it. I had my questions in front of me. So anyway,
okay. We're going to take another break. You're listening to Jim Stein and Dave Morgasen, my partners on many shows and movies, and we'll talk about all that on the other side of the break. It's radio with TV's Tim Stack.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, 20 minutes. Here we go. Let's knock the next one. 22 minutes. 3, 2, 1.
By the way, how the hemorrhoids?
Terrific. I just saw them in Florida. They send in the guards. Hey, I want Kimberly Clark. She's my number 2. Yeah, you must be selling your nuts by the sackful.
Well,
Kimberly, the king here has got the biggest, most tender nuts on the island.
Nuts.
As a child, I'd spend hours sucking on the king's nuts.
Oh my God.
Nuts.
Kimberly, strange. His nuts are hard, yet juicy.
Nuts. Okay, I got it.
no, Kimberly, it's true. Nothing would give me more pleasure than watching Notch stuffing my nuts into his mouth.
Yeah.
Oh
All
man.
right.
That was a sweaty balls joke before they did sweaty balls. I'll just give.
There you go.
I'll give that run some.
Can we air
And
that?
Pat Morita was the king there. I don't think he'll be singing. That's who played the king of Hawaii. Who had a macadamia nut farm in Hawaii.
That's right.
Naturally, yeah.
Qualifying all that. Anyway, he just loved doing the part and doing that bit. It was very hard getting him to not laugh during that. Also, one of the coldest days of shooting Son of the Beach. We were out in Pasadena, and it was just really, really cold that day. And we were supposed to be in Hawaii. And anyway,
Pat Morita was in that.
So Jim,
Yes.
go back a little bit before, because I also want to tell people about Little Jimmy Stein, because
That goes way back.
that's way back. You were a
Yeah.
kid, and you would
Yeah.
perform under the handle of Little Jimmy Stein, and you were
That
like
is correct.
song and dance man. Is that right?
I was I was the child version of Elvis Presley. You know, I would, Elvis Presley was the king, and I would go on these amateur hours. I think it was more my mother wanted, you know.
Maybe Jesse Presley, the twin who died, but keep going.
Maybe Jesse.
So anyway, my mother would kind of like, you know, I was probably singing along to records, and she probably said, "Oh, isn't that cute? You know, let's put him on one of these amateur hours." And so, you know, it wasn't. They were like American Idol, but you didn't win $1 million. I won a parakeet
or something.
And so I went on these shows and I would sing, you know, these songs, and then.
What was your top song?
Well, I sang a medley of "Love Me Tender" and "Too Much," and what was the other one?
You really do Elvis songs. You'd really do "Love Me Tender."
What's that?
You would really do "Love Me Tender." Elvis's.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have recordings of this, which, you know, one day they'll dig out, but
fortunately,
not while I'm alive.
Fortunately, I have them too.
Uh-oh.
Jimmy,
So,
Dave, dial them. If you can dial them up on your computer while we're doing this, that would be fantastic.
In any case, I was doing this, and then we moved to the suburbs from Chicago, and I was supposed to sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer at a school event, and this kid came up to me. This kid came up to me and he said, "That's Sissy." And I never sang again.
That's all it took.
That's all it took.
Oh, what the world! That guy, whoever that was, boy, the talent from the world.
Imagine if he had said that to Sinatra.
Yes.
You know?
Speaking of which, Dave, you had mentioned you did a prank phone call to Sinatra.
Why, yes, I did, Tim.
And
that was a good transition. Wow.
The sheet right there.
Oh, I see.
Oh, wow.
Well done. Well done.
I'm just reading questions like Jim did.
Yes.
So were you ever on amateur hours?
Seriously, you did a prank. I never knew this. You did a prank call to Frank Sinatra?
Of course you knew it.
I didn't know that. I know.
No. Come on. You knew that.
I did it as Bob Hope. Remember?
To Frank Sinatra Jr.?
Okay. No.
You're going to set the stage, or I'll set the stage?
I'll set it up.
Okay, no, it's good stuff. Let's save that for the last segment because I'm playing a clip that'll set that up.
Okay.
Okay. So back to little Jimmy Stein. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
So Dave, let's go over to Dave for a second. So Dave, you did a lot of the segment directing for Jimmy Kimmel, and just talk about that, because if you go online and look at these things, they're really, really funny. Like you did one with Shirley Jones and Cloris Leachman.
Right.
That's on YouTube, right?
Yeah, that one was a parody of Cougar Town called Sabertooth Tiger Town. About these old
about these really, really old horny women.
It was great because it got me. I was just on board as a director of the, like the monologue bits that Kimmel does, the commercial parodies, all fake press conferences, all that stuff, and it was great. So I also got a chance to work with Eminem and a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah, really cool stuff. And it's all really super well directed. The other thing I want people to go see that Dave did is, and there's a series of them where you can explain, Dave, but all the David Blaine stuff, this making fun of David Blaine, they're all on YouTube and they're really, really funny. Mikey Day is in them, Mitch Silpa. Go ahead, you explain.
Well, yeah, it's weird because I sort of just I was a writer for years and years, and I took like a weird left turn in the middle of things. It's like I saw this stuff, this online stuff, like really taking off. YouTube was fairly new, And I remember saying to my agent at the time, it's like, boy, I'd really love to get involved in this online stuff, but it's like, I've got a family and a mortgage, and I can't like go into the garage and edit videos like these 22-year-olds are doing. I mean, I got to get paid. And he said, well, you have the startup. HBO is doing this comedy website in conjunction with AOL, both divisions of, at the time, Time Warner, and a horrible marriage, by the way, HBO and AOL, two entirely different corporate cultures. But anyway, so he had this website. So they hired me as an executive producer. And it's like, okay, I mean, an executive producer can be a nebulous title anyway. And here it's like an online, a website, which I never worked for. So it's like, well, they said, well, do what you want. I'm like, Jesus, I said, well, the thing I know is like comedy, short comedy video. It's like, so what I did was like, for my background and experience with the Groundlings, it's like, I went to a Groundling show. It's like, that's like, like Lorne Michaels scouts talent there. That's how he picks them. So it's like, I sat in the back and just watched several shows. And the thing that really brought down the house that particular night when I went was this David Blaine parody. David Blaine's Street Magic. When this guy playing David Blaine would have these two guys, one of them being Mikey Day, and another one being Michael Naughton, and he would know everything about them. So rather than so first they were amazed and amused, and then they were terrified of this David Blaine. Like he knew way too much about them. So that was right before the break in the show. And so, but that got one of the biggest laughs I've ever seen at the Groundlings Theater. I've seen some pretty funny things there. It's a huge laugh. So after I went up to them and said, hey, you guys interested in doing some viral videos based on this David Blaine thing? So they'd already done one like on their own, like in back of the Groundlings Theater, kind of a quick one off, and it got a lot of great reviews. So I said, well, let's do a sequel. So we started shooting. We did the second one, third one, fourth one. And the concession with all of them was like the way these guys wrote it was like, there can't be any cuts. It's got to be one continuous shot. And I'm like, well, you have two locations in the script. How do we do that? They said, oh, well, Michael's apartment is in Burbank in back of an alley. So basically we're starting the alley, and then we just keep the camera running and you follow us running into his apartment. Like, okay. So it was really, I was a little nervous, but it turned out really great. And it's like one continuous shot for 5 minutes. And I said, why do you want it like that? And they said, because the real David Blaine, if he was on TV, there would be no edits, or else people would say it's cheating.
Right. It's funny.
So we can't do that.
Really, really great. If you get on YouTube, look for them. They're really, really funny. So let's go back to Jim for a second. Jim, you, before we met on Nightstand, you really had, I'm just going to look at some of the credits here. You wrote on the Carol Burnett show. You wrote for Carol Burnett. You wrote for Mary Tyler Moore, the Mary Tyler Moore Variety Hour. Fernwood Tonight, talked about Sanford and Son. What was Red? You wrote of Sanford and Son. Did you get to meet Red Fox?
I never met Red Fox, but I don't know if I could tell this joke. But I went to the show when they were doing our script, and Red Fox told this very ethnic audience, mostly probably because I did a show called Amen. They mainly come from churches and places like that. He told this joke, which I guess I can't say here, but
it's a hard, dirty, racist joke.
No, it wasn't racist.
Horrible and dirty.
It's dirty.
So anyway, I mean, I could do the
No, don't worry about it. We get it.
All right, I can do the punchline.
How about a Nightstand? A Nightstand.
The punchline was, so I drove her to El Segundo.
Okay. That sounds like a B174 joke.
And I think somewhere in there was the line, I have a girlfriend, and she said, Red, kiss me where it smells.
Okay, we're going to cut that out. That little run there, but that's okay. So, and now you also wrote a Cosby. Did you get to meet Bill Cosby?
Yeah, well, Bill Cosby actually, I hate to say, made me a writer. because,
Did he offer you a latte before he did?
what's that?
Did he offer you a latte before he did? Wake up! You're a writer.
It was just Benadryl. I mean, I don't know. You know.
You're a writer now.
Yeah. So so what happened was that God, I have to go back a little bit, but my partner and I were doing a radio show. You know, there was a guy named Digby Wolf who was one of the co-creators of Laugh-In, and he was teaching one of the classes at the USC where I was going, and he said he was going to be producing a NBC special, and he was going to have a monologue writing contest. You know, whoever wrote the best monologue was going to get a job on this network show that he was doing. And NBC network show. So, you know, my partner and I, Bob Isles, we wrote these monologues. They are horrible. They probably not. And every week he would come to class and say, I'm going to announce the winner next week. I'm going to announce the winner next week. I'm going to announce the winner next week. Finally, it came to be like Christmas vacation. And he hadn't announced the winner. And he said, I'm going to let the winner know by mail. So we're checking the mailbox every day and whatever, nothing. I got Isles. This is a good part of having a partner. I got Isles to call the guy. And Isles asked, who won?
Ever since little Jimmy Stein, you've never been able to exert yourself when the guy you were sissies. Okay, so Isles calls.
Isles calls, he says, who won? And Digby said, you did. So to this day, I don't know that, you know, there was anything about the monologue but it may have been just the fact that we called. And we got paid a lot of money to do this. I mean, it was like, you know, an actual network writer fee. Wow. So I was sold.
That kind of does not happen now. That's a crazy story.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. And then Digby was going to be co-producing with George Schlatter this new Bill Cosby variety show, which was 24 episodes guaranteed on CBS, you know, with guest stars like Peter Sellers and whatever. Quincy Jones was the band leader. I mean, it was like, you know, they got the best comedy writers in town. And so they hired us, not as writers, but as researchers. They were going to pay us really well, but we were going to be basically under the table writers, thanks to Digby. And then we had all these great writers, and Cosby called us into a rehearsal hall one day because they had just produced the first script. And I mean, these guys wrote for, you know, all the biggies, and, you know, and there were people like Pat McCormick on the staff, and, you know, that's a whole other, but in any case, Cosby looked at the script with all these writers around, and he said, this is, I'll say, crap.
You can say that.
He said, get me one of those, and he pointed to a typewriter, and some of that, and he pointed to paper, and I'll write the show. And that was my introduction to Bill Cosby and to, you know, how writers can be treated in Hollywood. And of course, he never wrote anything.
Right.
But, you know, my partner and I, we saw an opportunity because none of these guys had taken the time to listen to a Bill Cosby album, you know, and you know, his style is so easily duplicated.
Right.
We started writing monologues for him.
And he liked them.
And then he liked them, and he was going like, well, who are these guys writing these monologues? Okay. And it was us, and we weren't even in the Writers Guild. And he insisted, as did some other writers, that we become part of the Writers Guild. And then our salary went, you know, so.
Became writers, and that's when you had the latte. Okay, we're gonna take another break, our final break on It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack, talking to Dave Morgasen and Jim Stein, and we'll be right back.
What do you have, 4 minutes, Richard?
Oh, we got more than that.
Okay.
We got more.
You don't have a 2 o'clock?
It's apparently recorded.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
How much more time do you need just so he can?
Just
count you down?
another 5
minutes.
minutes,
10?
something like
10
that. 5
minutes.
minutes is good.
10 minutes?
Yeah, we
Okay.
got 10 minutes into the 1
Okay.
hour.
All right. Great show, guys.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
All those shows being canceled on TV. You know, 34 shows were canceled. It's the worst thing that's happened to television since Gentle Ben ate his acting coach. It was real sneaky the way they canceled Hogan's Heroes. When they came up out of the escape tunnel, they found themselves in the unemployment office.
I looked for Bob Hope clips yesterday and came up with that one. The reason I played a Bob Hope clip is because, we always, there's some videos out there somewhere, but like behind the scenes on Son of the Beach, and people always want to know, like, what was Howard like? What was he like? And it was like, he was great. He was so much fun, but especially during the pilot when he was out, because somehow he and Dave, and Jim and I loved laughing at it. Howard and Dave would do dueling Bob Hopes. So, Dave, do a little bit of Bob Hope for everybody.
All right. So just this, let me just preface it by saying this is not remotely accurate. Basically, what it is like, it's taking Dave Thomas's impersonation that he did on SCTV, which
he broke
really,
the barrier. He really broke the barrier.
He broke the barrier to the Bob Hope. He cracked the code to do Bob Hope.
Right.
And what I did is I took that impersonation and I aged it like 50 years. So I did like the 100-year-old Bob Hope, who was decrepit, demented, just sick. And we had heard some stories about Bob Hope behind the scenes, which were a little racy. And so we incorporated all this into a brew. So it's like, so back in the day, it would be like, hey, how you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Isn't that something? Good crowd, like that. But then it's like the version like in the writer's room was like, Bob would be falling apart and I'd be falling off the chair and going, yeah, isn't that something? Yeah, and he looked like he had palsy. You hear something wrong with his head, a stroke, And I'd say, yeah, Tim, that was good. That reminds me of the time that what was I saying? I was saying something. Anyway, what? And he'd just be so, so it's Tim said, Howard and I would be doing that. In fact,
you guys would get really dirty too, which we can't do. Except you do things like, I'm going to do you now doing Dave Thomas. You do things like, I had Lola Filano in the back of a car one night, that kind of stuff. Yeah, hey Lola, nice to see you. You want the job? You know what you got to do. So that, and I remember being on the set filming the pilot, which was fantastic. First of all, because we were like out on the beach, right? Like we're Santa Monica, we're filming out on the beach, and like one of the first scenes. So Howard and I are right behind the director. We're sitting in director's chairs, and we're sitting there. And Howard, we kept switching up between doing Bob Hope and Johnny Carson. Howard liked to go, yeah, and I was doing Johnny and he was doing Johnny. And then we came down to him doing Johnny and me doing Bob Hope. And so he's going, Mr. Hope, let me ask you this question. What is it, Johnny? And so the director actually had to turn around and say, would you guys please shut up? We're trying to film here. And it's just so funny. And Howard goes, now you freaking got me into trouble. You just got me into trouble. And I said, that was your fault, Howard. I was sitting here quiet. And we're just like, this is during the pilot. So it's like, I don't know how this bodes for the series. I think eventually they had to get you to like your own monitor.
Because,
And here's the thing. Nobody else on the set except me, Jim, Dave, and Howard remotely liked this bit or got it. Like,
we're the only ones.
Including Don Buchwald, who's just rolling his eyes like, that's kind of funny, I guess. But between Howard and Dave doing Johnny or Bob Hope, it kept the four of us really amused during some, long hours. And again, it's cold on the beach. You guys weren't in bathing suits. It was cold out there.
No, and Howard used to want me to call his show at 5 a.m. as Bob Hope. So I became for a while, like a phone-in for Howard. Yeah.
Right. And so how did the Frank Sinatra thing go down?
Oh, okay. So that was actually before we met Howard Stern. That happened during the
No,
very
that wasn't. That
very-
was, oh, that
no.
was. You're right. It was
Wait,
Nightstand.
hold on,
Okay, I'm
hold on.
sorry. Yeah.
So the very last week of production for Nightstand, and I mean the last final season, the very last week, all the other writers were gone. You were down rehearsing on the stage.
Right.
And Jim and I were both sitting in the writers' room by ourselves in this giant writers' room across from each other, both feet up on the table reading newspapers. You know, our heads are buried in the newspapers. And so Jim goes, "Hey, looks like Sinatra's had another heart attack. He's in the hospital." And I'm like, "Oh, where?" And he goes, "Cedars." And so then Jim says, "I got an idea. It'd be funny if you tried to get Frank Sinatra on the phone, call the hospital as Bob Hope." And I'm like, and of course, you know, because we are who we are, I said, "You know, Jim, that's a great idea." Like, that is brilliant. Rather than saying you were out of your mind, I'm like, "That's great. Let's get a phone." So we got a phone and we called Cedars, and I'm saying it's like, "Yeah, Frank Sinatra, please." You know, and it's like,
So this is Bob Hope.
it's like, "This is Bob Hope," you know, and he goes, "Well, Mr. Sinatra is not here at Cedars." I said, "Come on, Toots, I read the papers. I know he's there. And put me through to the chairman's room." You know, and Jim's laughing. And then in the middle so while we're doing this, Tim is walking by in his suit. He just came back from a dress rehearsal. He's walking by and he sticks his head in to see what we're doing. And so Jim announced, "We're calling Frank Sinatra in the hospital, Bob Hope." And Tim goes, "Great, I'll go tape it in the other room." And so Tim goes into another room and has like a micro cassette recorder, something like that, puts it on a speakerphone, and he records the rest of it. And so as Bob Hope, I keep getting up closer and closer to speak to Sinatra. Never make it. I'm right outside his door. The nurse
Not to the head nurse, though. I remember the head nurse was really friendly.
She was really friendly. "Oh, Mr. Hope, we work together at such and such a company." I'm like, and she goes, "Remember, my name is Charlie." It's difficult to forget a gal named Charlie, I'll tell you that. You know, and Tim tapes the whole thing. And so it's like, and so I'd say, and finally when I get through, you know, to this nurse, and she goes, "Well, can I take a message? He's taking a nap. Is he okay? Is he able to go to the potty? Is he all right? Is he walking around? What's going on with him?" And she goes, "Could I give him a message?" And I said, "All right, dear Frank, hey Francis, get better and get the heck out of there. Love, Dolores and Bob a Bowie Hope." Just let me read that back. "Dolores and Bob a Bowie Hope." Yeah, that's a little league joke we got. Baba Booey, Baba Booey. And then what happened was Tim gets it on tape. We don't know Howard, but we're right before his show on the E Network, Nightstand, and then followed by Howard. So Tim FedExes it to Howard Stern, to Gary. And like, I think the next day they played it on the air.
That's so funny. We tried to do everything we could to get, it's interesting coming back to Howard then on Son of the Beach, because during Nightstand, we did everything we could to get Howard to talk about Nightstand. And we were on right before him, but he wouldn't do it. We did a Howard reference on the show. Which they've since used on that show as a promo. But that's so funny. I forgot the whole history of how that got to Howard.
Yeah, and then when we went up there, the whole cast went up there, and we went up there for an interview when he was at K-Rock in New York. And I reminded Gary of that. And Gary took me through all these hallways back to his computer in his office, and he showed me where it says, "Bob Hope calls Frank Sinatra in hospital." He had it in the database. And it was just so funny. But that's, before we even knew Howard, we did that bit. We played it.
That's so great. So we're running out of time here. Dave, I'm looking at all my notes here, all the promo. One thing I do want to promote of ours, which I realized David posted on the internet. If you go on the internet, Jim, Dave, and I with Maz Jobrani and Courtney Cox and a rest of a really great cast put together an 8-minute animatic that's on YouTube called Red, White, and Lou. That's really, really funny. And Fox should have bought it and they didn't. And, Jim's got that ocean view. He's going to buy the project back. And that ocean view is going to help us make that animated show. But I wanted to promote that.
I wouldn't buy that crap. No.
It's so really tight 8 minutes that's worth seeing out there. There's so much more things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about how Jim had fired Mike Ovitz, the most powerful agent.
Oh yeah. Well, you have to do it on the sequel.
On 2 different occasions, like I was at a Lakers game when somebody had given me a courtside seat and I was next to Ovitz and he said he loved Nightstand, which was like, wow, that's cool. And I said, it was on the show, it was right on the show with Jim Stein. And immediately he said, he fired me. He fired me.
I didn't know that one. Okay.
Yeah. And Dave, you have a follow-up to that, right?
What's that?
You have a follow-up to that, right?
The Mike Ovitz story?
Yeah, don't you? No.
No. I want to tell the story about when you pulled that guy's pants down, but
go ahead.
It was that was the biggest laugh I've
that
ever
was
heard.
Might be the longest laugh in network
Yes, the
television,
longest laugh ever.
or syndicated television.
It was a nightstand with Dick Dietrick, and Dick was supposed to there was a guy supposed to come out and he was it was about computer dating, and there was this woman who refused to go out with anybody, I guess, and she just wanted to be on her own. And so he goes, what about this guy? And so we hired some male model, I guess.
Yeah.
And he comes out, I guess. And so what do you think? She goes, oh, he's okay. And then then Dick Dietrick rips the guy's shirt off. And he goes, how about now?
It was really cut, really buff.
Yeah.
You're really buff guy. And then it's like, no, I'm not sure. He goes, well, what if we did this? And then he was basically supposed to take down, I think, his sweatpants.
Sweatpants on. He was going to have boxer shorts on.
Boxer shorts underneath. So that worked out fine during the rehearsal.
Yes.
But the actual taping, he goes and he pull the down, and he ends up pulling his underwear down as well. So all that's showing are the family jewels, and that's it. And the audience, Jim and I were across the way. We were upstairs in the writer's room in the offices, and we're watching on a monitor, right? So that's when he does it. We see this. Tim disappears. Dick Dietrick disappears behind the curtain.
I was beyond embarrassed.
And Jim and I, we go downstairs and we walk across, go into the studio, and the laughter's still going on when we arrive. Went for several more minutes. And that was the longest laugh ever.
That made, believe it or not, I got a bunch of residual checks because Dick Clark's bloopers used to air that. They put a blue circle over the guy's equipment, but they would air that clip all the time.
Oh yeah,
of me pulling that guy's pants down. He was really a nice guy about. Like I mean, he could have sued us, and he just anyway.
Well, he probably would have today.
You even mentioned Dick Clark when you did it. You came back. You were mortified. You were really mortified. You came back and you said, "We've been trying to get on Dick Clark's blooper show for a while, and it worked. It actually worked."
I think that clip is on YouTube too. If you go like Nightstand with Dick Dietrick bloopers, I think that clip will show up, and it's really.
I may have posted it, so I think I have that on my YouTube account.
Okay, unfortunately, our time with Jim and Dave has come to an end. That sad song, that Carol Burnett, who Jim wrote for at one time, song is playing. But thank you guys. Thanks so much for doing this. Thank you.
And I have to get to my job at Best Buy, so.
Jeremiah, this is all part of the Jeremiah Show. It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack. So thank you, Jeremiah Higgins, who's here with us today, and Dr. D. Thank you, and I'll see you next time on It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack.
We are clear. I'm going to stop.
That was great, guys.